Vaedhe by Morrigan Wright. 1. The ancient gargantuan colony twisted and groaned as it floated, aimless, through the galaxy. Without an atmosphere, its pain was silent for decades, but an expedition team, complete with manufactured gravity and breathable air, gave it a voice once more. Gaping holes on the side of the outermost ring led to unshielded hangars and, over the years, bits of shuttles, as well as the metal-lined walls, were pulled from their places by the forces acted upon them. This made for a debris-heavy landing zone. The crew of the Relentless, an unlicensed junker ship, utilized tracking beams to clear their way enough for a safe docking point. Not long after they landed, the crew assembled an atmosphere bubble in the clear area. The bubble's glass hadn't been cleaned in years, and it was layered with grime, but it would protect them from the void outside. And once the machines were set up, the crew could relax and rest for the night. Soon, most of the team lay pleasantly asleep, in their commandeered cots, lined up in the hangar. But Vivi stared at the ceiling, her ocular implants trying to focus on something, anything, far above her. Older colonies had hangars with enough room for seed ships carrying new generations of colonists, fresh blood for the stagnant gene pool. This meant the ceiling should have been a shadowy mess of struts, but Vivi's new implants had increased range, and she hadn't gotten the hang of them before the crew had left the moon they called home. If she had a chance to do it all over again, she'd wait until after a mission in rarely visited space to get new eyes. But that was entirely her choice. After all, Riggs set the implant appointment for her and paid in full for the cybernetics. However, it was because of her implants that Vivi couldn't sleep. They focused and refocused, trying to make sense of the ceiling through the filthy glass. Her head pounded, and, when she closed her eyes, the cybernetics activated other visual spectra, trying to see through her eyelids. Even when she groaned and buried her face in her pillow, her eyes were cycling through their modes. Finally, she gave up, laying on her back and letting her implants do as they wished. It was times like these that she missed sightlessness. It didn't take long before one of the others got up, pacing away from the bed cluster. From the cadence of the footsteps, it was the dust sucker that they brought along. Riggs claimed the woman was useful, but Vivi saw none of it so far. Strange that a teenager was the harshest critic in this life-or-death situation. Maybe she was too judgmental, but she had reason. Before the dust sucker joined, they had already had a complete crew. Riggs was the captain. He owned the ship, junker though it was, and served on many vessels before, so his understanding of protocol and vehicle itself was integral. Nell, the navigator, had an impressive background, including some time in the Imperial military. She trained for years for her position. Hatham was an amazing pilot, with countless voyages behind him. Jace had expertise in security, though he was a bit trigger-happy. And Vivi was Jace's apprentice. So, who was the dust sucker supposed to be? Vivi listened to the woman's footsteps, wishing her eyelids cut out all the spectra her new eyes could pick up. By now, the thermal imaging was the most disconcerting. If she'd had a choice, she would have picked the cheapest option, the one with only the normal, visible light, but Riggs shelled out the money to get her the top-of-the-line equipment. He said she'd get used to it and she'd thank him later, but she couldn't see how. Besides, now her default line of humor was useless to her. All that time coming up with quality blind jokes, lost. Eventually, Riggs got up, lighting his usual morning cigarette, and walked over to the makeshift kitchen. There were no chairs, and the crew brought over a few boxes, upturned a barrel or two, and made a seating area. As was tradition for the first breakfast on a mission, Riggs started cooking up what would likely be their last meal that didn't come out of a ration pack until they were headed back to their home planet of Eveliv. Once the scent of cooking food spread throughout the base camp, the others were up, though barely conscious. Vivi joined them, finally getting out of her bed and making her way to the seating area. The dust sucker joined the rest of the crew shortly, though the expression on her face said that she wasn't particularly interested in socializing. "You sleep well, Viv?" Jace asked with a yawn, sitting down beside her. "Nah, still not used to seeing through my eyelids," she said. "Come on, you couldn't see at all before." "Yeah, so seeing through my eyelids is a whole new level of hell." Jace smirked. "You'll get used to it." He patted her on the shoulder. "I don't think I will. Do you see even when your eyes are closed?" Nah, but mine aren't as fancy. I'll load up the user manual when I get some downtime. There has to be a way to turn that off. Soon he'll be funding all of our cybernetics, Haytham chimed in. Won't you, Riggs? You said something about wanting to replace my hands when we got back. Riggs grunted. Ain't worth talking about till I got the credits for it, but yeah, you need faster hands. Nell's gotta have a new neural hookup, and I gotta upgrade Jace's eyes. We are individuals, you know, Nell said, a hint of disdain in her voice. We aren't assets on the ship or extensions of it. You're a fool if you think that's how I see you. But you're talking about replacing parts of a body with cybernetics, Haytham pointed out. It's a group effort, and you know it. I'm getting my legs replaced. How's it fair if none of you get an upgrade? I don't know. I kinda get it for Viv and Jace. They didn't have eyes before, you know? But I kinda like my hands, Heyman said. My Neuralink gets the job done just as fast and without cutting off my hands. We don't gotta worry about that for a few weeks, Jace said. We got a mission to get to now. Vivi groaned. Perhaps talking about body modification first thing in the morning was a bad idea. Riggs dished out the food and conversation died as everyone set to eating. After all, the task that lay ahead of them wasn't simple or easy. Over the past several months, many people from the lower rungs of Evolive society disappeared under strange circumstances. Every one of them was missing someone, some member of their family or a close friend. No one charged them with this mission, this attempt to find and rescue these people, but it felt like no one else would do it if they didn't. Nell put together the clues that led them to the colony, clues Vivi didn't entirely understand nor care about. All Vivi wanted was to get the missing people home safely. Then again, if everyone was alive, it'd probably take them multiple trips in the Relentless to get everybody back. There was hardly enough room for 15 to travel comfortably in the Junker, and 50 people were missing. Eventually, Riggs finished and set his mess kit aside. Vivi glanced up at him, setting her mostly untouched food down beside her, much too nervous to eat. Listen up, Riggs growled, the husk in his voice more from years of smoking than any frustration he might feel. His bulk and girth were, perhaps, less intimidating in low-gravity environments, but his wild, graying hair, scarred visage, and dark circles beneath his eyes left a lasting impression. We have a base camp, so it's time to go scouting. I'll stay here, keep these generators running. Nell, Haytham, your ship crew. I want you floating outside. Keep it so we have a quick escape if we need. Leave the craft here, Haytham clarified. Leave an escape craft here. Got it. Jace, Vivi, Mira, you're scouts. I want you to split up, go 3 ways, keep on comms, and let us know what you find. We sync up our watches, and I want you back here at 1600. If you meet anyone, don't interact. Take surveillance photos, videos, but don't approach. Make a report of what you find. At night, if it is safe, we'll rest at this camp. Otherwise, we go back to the ship and sleep. Yes, sir, Nell said. Nell and Haytham started the ships, and Riggs stared at the remaining 3. I don't care which way you go. Decide on your own. Get your suits on, get your gear, and get out of here, Riggs said. You want a blind kid to go off on her own, Vivi said, a frown on her lips. You ain't a kid anymore. 1 year out from legal drinking age ain't a kid. And you ain't blind neither. Your new eyes'll give you better than anyone else'll get. She pouted, squinting at him to accentuate her displeasure. Get out of here! Riggs gestured for them to leave, and Vivi stuck her tongue out at him before heading off to suit up. Vivi waited until the dust sucker left, heading to the west. It irked her that Riggs sent them in different directions. She worked best with Jace. Riggs knew that, but orders were orders, and there would be time to complain later. As Jace headed off going to the eastern door, Vivi checked her suit and headed for a north door. She switched on her shoulder-mount camera, intending to get as much footage as she could. She'd be useful to Riggs, prove her worth. But really, they should have all gone together. Most likely, these branching paths led to a central area, so provided they used their time wisely, the 3 of them would meet up before they were supposed to return. A blip of heat caught her attention ahead, and she froze, catching her breath as the ship roared to life behind her. It was nothing. Probably some errant wave of gas. Even in space, heat did exist. Well, she thought anyway. She had no formal science training, not her field, so she headed toward the opening and hoped that she met no one in her exploration. In the research into the colony, it seemed extremely ordinary. Nothing stuck out as dangerous with it. No strange experiments, no enhanced AI attachments. It was a human settlement and seemed centered around religious beliefs, something about the sun or reincarnation. Vivi didn't understand it, and she wasn't too keen on learning, more worried about her brother than the religious belief of a dead colony. Vivi didn't know the full details, but the colony system lost power over a century ago, and it was thought the citizens did not survive the catastrophe. Though a few scientific expeditions were made, nothing was conclusively found, and the station was left to float, unmolested since. "Comms check," Jace's voice came over the line. "Mira checking in," the dust sucker replied. Vivi froze, startled by the sudden noise. She'd never gotten used to the long-range comms. "Don't talk if you don't need anything," she exclaimed. "Give me a fucking heart attack." Her heart thundered in her chest, and she put her hands to it, hoping to steady herself. Jace chuckled. "Hey, we don't know this tech. Just wanted to make sure that we'd be heard." "Clear the line," Riggs cut in. "This is for mission only, not your social pleasures." "Thought you said to keep in contact," Vivi grumbled, though she chose not to broadcast her thoughts. Once she recovered from the shock, she continued deeper into the colony. The further she drifted from the camp, the darker it got, and she eventually switched her helmet light on as she entered the corridor connecting the hangar bay to the rest of the colony, preferring that to her implant's night vision. The connecting corridor was painted with alien words accompanied by arrows. Fortunately for her, the helmet contained a display that translated the words. She was headed into a decontamination chamber, and then an outer engineering ring. Most likely, both Jace and the dust sucker would run into the same thing on their routes, as it was a common design on the older colonies. As she entered the decontamination, she activated her magnetic boots, allowing her to walk somewhat normally. None of the usual processes triggered. Not that Vivi visited the floating colonies often enough to know what those were. Technology came a long way in a century. However, once she got through to the other side, she found the floors clean, undamaged. More perplexed, there were no corpses. While she wasn't an expert on decomposition rates in the void, she imagined there'd at least be skeletal remains, even this far along. Or maybe they were all sucked out into space early on. Who was to say? Thinking on it too long would worry her, and she had the distinct desire not to have a panic attack while on limited oxygen. So she stepped into the engineering ring, quieting her anxiety and following an arrow that, supposedly, led toward the main city. She still had a few rings of engineering and maintenance to get through, along with the long hallway between the outer rings and the main colony. She checked her camera to make sure that she was recording and ventured on. But somewhere up ahead, she saw something moving, something in the shadows, or some debris floating lazily in an inconvenient space. Vivi shifted through her various settings, trying to understand what she was seeing. Several of the spectra showed her something, but the shapes didn't make sense. She squinted, but that didn't help her brain process anything. It shifted and twisted, and she stepped closer, trying to see it fully. Then the radio crackled to life, startling her from this vague sense of enchantment that she felt at this strange vision. "Viv, Jace, Mira, get back here," Riggs growled. "What's wrong?" Vivi asked, shaking her head before averting her gaze from the shifting thing. Probably some sort of gas. "Comms ain't safe. Get back here." Maybe it was for the best. Slowly, she backed out of the hallway, picking up the pace once she reached decontamination again, turning off the magnetism and propelling herself forward with her arms. Her paranoia was mostly based on the silence, she reasoned, and the loneliness of the scouting mission. Whatever she saw, it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Just some sort of drifting fumes, something gassing off deep within the colony. "If I get home alive, I'm gonna try alcohol, illegal or not," she grumbled as she sped toward the base camp.